Oh great, now I have to finally talk about Turbo. Hey guys, and welcome to another Ranger Rant. Of course, everyone knows I'm Archer9234. Today I'll be talking about Power Ranger Turbo episode 22, titled Troubled by the Slice. Now this episode particularly is adapted from episode 27 of Car Ranger. Although they do use the footage near the second half of the episode, the main story from Turbo's episode does not follow anything from Car Ranger's episode that it's from. Now this will cause the main story plot issue later on in the episode. Now the episode begins with everyone, Rygog, Porto, Elgar, and a group of Piranatrons with Divatox on the beach, and they're testing out a new kind of, scientific gimmick that teleports people around, which I thought was really interesting because we finally got, a new scene with the Divatox and everyone outside the ship because, frankly, the submarine set is really lacking. There's not much room, so you can't do much stuff, so it was nice to see them shooting outside. So while Portal is preparing to test out the new teleporting beam gun thing, Divatox grabs it from him and is trying to, test it on a Piranatron, which the Piranatron is constantly, moving around, and she misses the first time. While conveniently enough, Elgar says another smirky remark. Now, I know Elgar is supposed to be, the comedy relief, even though everyone is pretty much a comedy relief, but you think after so many times where, Divatox either beats him up or shoots lasers at his face, he would not say anything, because all it does is it pisses her off. And we finally get the closest reference to a curse word on PR. Divatox, for some weird reason, has the power to turn a Piranatron with her laser eyesight into a donkey, which basically signals that, Elgar is being a jackass. So after that little argument with Elgar as usual, Divatox returns to, testing out the new teleporter beam gun thing. And she finally tells the Piranatron that keeps moving back and forth to not move. But at the last minute, he moves and ducks. The beam ricochets off the rock face and hits her and teleports her to somewhere in Angel Grove, where where Porto and everyone else doesn't know where she went. So after we find out Divatox was transported to a certain random location in Angel Grove, we find out she has lost her memory. Now I want to ask, why does a teleporting beam gun erase someone's memory? That never made any sense whatsoever. After we find out that she lost her memory, we see her, stumbling around, probably disoriented because she doesn't know where she is, what she's doing, who she is, and then she's trying to, interact with the civilian people, which I found a little bit weird because in normal circumstances, anytime someone is dressed up in an odd costume, everyone screams and runs away because they're obviously assumed that it's a monster attack. But for some reason here, none of the civilians are all, scared at all. They're just confused and puzzled why this woman looks like this. So after 5 minutes, we finally get interaction with, the main cast of Rangers. Now we finally see Carlos and Justin walking through the park. But for some stupid reason, Carlos is asking Justin for dating tips and stuff. I understand Justin is the geek, the super intelligent character, but Justin's is a 12, 13-year-old kid. What the hell would he know about dating? It would have made more sense if TJ was with Carlos instead of Justin. This whole scene didn't make any sense whatsoever about this. So while Carlos and Justin are walking around, they find a group of kids playing, soccer, and Carlos asks, since Carlos is the guy who loves soccer, asks Justin to join in, but since he doesn't know how to play, he was all anxious and didn't want to know what to do, but after a while, he did join in and started playing. So while this is going on, Rygog, Porto, and Elgar are trying to figure out where Divatox is, what should they do, and I'm glad Divatox is in command of the ship because these three bumbling idiots, they can't be calm, they can't do anything correct, and they just simply decide to drop it and, order a pizza. While Porto, Rygog, and Elgar are trying to figure out who's going to go for the pizza that they want to get, we find out that Divatox stumbles upon a pizzeria called Mike Pizzeria's. And she inadvertently eats a pizza, and since she has no money, Mike forcibly hires her to, work at the pizzeria place. Now, this is all right for the story, but the problem is that even though Divatox doesn't know who she is, she should still kind of act the way she normally acts, and I'm just surprised she didn't just zap him. So after a little bit where Divatox is finally settling in her new job position, we find out that Bulk and Skull also work there. and they're the people who deliver the pizzas. Now, this is again where I really hate what they did to Bulk and Skull. They reverted them back to their normal, corny, ridiculous self, and they're just doing random jobs. I was like, they set this all stuff up with them being cops, being more responsible, but being their funny, goofy selves still in Zio, and it was just complete and total utter waste, and we just see them doing any job wherever they feel like it. They don't even work for Stone anymore in any capacity. So while Bulk and Skull are leaving the pizzeria, we find out Carlos and Justin and his newfound friends are entering the pizzeria as well. Now this will cause, a couple of headaches since Divatox works there as well now. So while this is going on, Carlos and Justin are ordering the pizzas, and they're kind of having this little weirdness because he's a nerd and everyone's complaining about that. And when they finally, go and play on the video games, we find out that Divatox is inadvertently eating pizzas, cutting out slices, eating all this weird stuff, and is scaring the helper that's behind the stove area. Now the helper in the background, from this point on, thanks to Jungle Fury, it always made weird that she kind of strikingly reminds me of Fran. So in a way, if you really wanted to, you could fit around a story where that could be Fran's mother that worked at a pizzeria, and this place could have been turned into the Jungle Karma Pizza at some point. But of course, it would be not the main one. It could be a different branch. I mean, it could have been a whole bunch of different stories just thanks to this one little moment. So while Divatox is in the back of the store, we find out that Porto is dressed up as a really awkward and horrible woman disguised and trying to order, burnt to the crisp pizza. And Mike, the pizzeria, even though he does kind of get really confused of her appearance, he still gives him the pizza. And Porto conveniently actually pays for the pizza. But since the Rangers were coming in at the exact same time this was going on, he got scared and was trying to walk out. So he was trying to hide his appearance. But the thing I didn't like is that Porto could have teleported at any point in time to get out of there, but he didn't. But conveniently enough, this made him run into Divatox. She was cleaning up all the stuff and everything. Unfortunately, since she couldn't get, snap her memory back into place, she stayed there, and Porto had to return to the submarine and tell everyone where she is, so they have to go rescue her later on. While we were having this, semi-funny, semi-stupid moment where Carlos is like conveniently not noticing Divatox is there, and then she walks back into the room, resuming her job and peeling, onions. So after a little bit, we find out a customer finally complains to Mike and saying that someone took a bite out of his pizza. So Mike obviously figures it out. It was Divatox. So he goes in the back and then starts trying to start yelling at her. But unfortunately, Divatox, as usual, will start, yelling back at Mike because she's doing a million different things. This scene I particularly like because I was like, okay, finally Divatox is actually acting like she's supposed to be. But then she snaps here, but she should have snapped before. It just felt a little bit odd that she just didn't snap before. So in order to get Divatox out of the pizzeria place, Elgar and Porto return to the pizzeria to try to convince Divatox to get out of there. But at the same time, they have to create a new monster. So right before they return to get Divatox, they create a monster made from Mike's artwork on the pizzeria, and we got this new pizza monster. Now, while the Rangers are back at the command center dealing with the situation, Demetria introduced a new weapon for the Ranger team called the turbine laser. Now this felt totally random and it never made any sense. We get to introduce a new weapon, and it's like it just came out of nowhere. This episode is not really a main plot-driven episode. It was just, one of the standard filler episodes, but they decided to introduce the turbine laser here. It just felt like it really didn't make any sense. So the Rangers get the new news and they morph to deal with the pizzeria monster. Now, since this is the first time I'm talking about Turbo, I want to bring up Alpha 6's New York accent. Since I'm from New York, I want to personally say this is a really bad stereotype that New Yorkers constantly get all the time, and I really hated that Alpha 6 talked like this because this is not how New Yorkers talk at all. If you want a true interpretation of how New Yorkers talk, please watch Rat Trap from Beast Wars. He's really pretty much the best one at that. Alright, finally, this is where the plot problems and issues happen using the footage from Car Ranger happens now. Now, when the Rangers arrive, they finally meet up with the Mike the Pizza monster, and they're giving all their weird lines. And I want to point out the really random line called "tossing their salad." Now, this line would never be ever used ever again in any PR episode because in this day and age, that has a different connotation now. Now here comes the weird part. Now Mountain Blaster and Lightning Cruiser come out of nowhere, and it just makes no sense whatsoever. Why are they being called out? It was never implied what was going on, and then so Mike the Pizza takes control of them by putting, you know, pizzas on the wheels and stuff and makes them go bad. Now the reason why this happened was because in the Car Ranger episode, this whole plot was revolving around the living cars. Mike the Pizza and Car Rangers try to convince Signal Man that these cars were runaways and they were bad, so he was going after them, and that's the reason why it was just random that they appear. Now, while this is going on, the Rangers were forced inside an industrial building, and Mike the Pizza was, well, let's do something funny and bake the Rangers into the pizza. Obviously, this is supposed to be as a joke, and it was alright funny, but it just felt weird because it was very cheesy, but it was okay at the same time. The thing that really bugged me about the scene, though, is that you can obviously tell this is Japanese footage because on the microwave door, there was a whole bunch of Japanese writing on it. Now here comes plot issue number 2. The Blue Centurion comes out of nowhere. The Rangers never call him. They do nothing whatsoever. Again, this is the issue because of the main story in Car Ranger was completely different to Turbo, and they didn't simply explain the footage. So that's the reason why the Blue Centurion comes and releases the Rangers out of the microwave out of nowhere. It made no sense. So after a little bit, the Blue Centurion deals with the cars, and he finally reverses their evilness by simply signaling them to stop, and that simply snaps them out. The Blue Centurion also releases the Rangers from the microwave, and they finally take their revenge on Mike the Pizza. Now this is where we finally get to see the turbine laser in use. Now, but the problem is this is the first time we ever see the turbine laser used, and we're supposed to get this big dramatic moment of using the new weapon, and ridiculously enough, the weapon is ineffective. Now, the reason why this was all awkward, and then they do that weird moment with them saying phooey and rats and fiddlesticks and all that stupid nonsense that was going on, the reason why is that in Car Rangers, in order to enlarge the monsters, they eat a specific Japanese food, and it causes them to enlarge. But since Turbo can't actually show you this, and they cover it up with the torpedo enlargement system, there was this awkward cut where you see the turbine laser hit, doesn't do anything, it cuts so fast, the audience doesn't even recognize that it failed, and that's the reason why the Rangers were giving off those weird fiddlesticks and stuff during their that's the Car Ranger roll call, by the way, so it made even more no sense why they did, and it just jumped back and forth. So after the Rangers and the Blue Centurion team up, they finally, destroy the Mike the Pizza, and they finally save Angel Grove from another ridiculous monster of the day. So we finally return back to the submarine where Divatox still has the teleport beam thing, and she takes her revenge on Porto and Rygong and Elgar's incompetence. Now I want to point out some funny issues with this scene. Now everyone's trying to try to make her not pay attention to each other while she's dealing with the pointing the teleport beam everywhere, and Rygong ducks and is like, oh, a dime. He's clearly too big to duck, and he's still right in front of the beam where she could still shoot him. I thought it was hilarious because no matter what, it wouldn't work because the suit is just so big. So then after a while, as usual, Elgar makes a stupid remark which pisses off Divatox again, and she shoots and teleports Elgar into the ocean, and we have this one final, laugh for the episode. Now here comes the big issue with this episode. The teleport beam gun was never used after this. It was not even part of the main plot of the episode. It was just used to erase Divatox's memory, and it was never brought up again. This weapon could have, forced Rangers to be teleported to the submarine. They could have teleported monsters all over the place. They could have found out where the command center was early on, but this thing was completely not used ever again, which is a shame. This episode could have been good, but it wasn't. I just wish it was a little bit more better. But I do have to say, though, the second half of Turbo was improving compared to the first half of Turbo because we finally got new Rangers and they were able to expand on the stories. So overall, I have to give the episode about 3 out of 5. I mean, it was an okay episode. It does have those cringe, really bad jokes that they constantly have to do in order to deal with Car Ranger because Car Ranger was, it was supposed to be a parody. It's supposed to be really funny, and it is. While Turbo is supposed to be semi-serious and then semi-funny, and it doesn't work all the time. Now, and also another thing that constantly annoys everyone is Justin. Now, I don't blame anything on Blake Foster, but really, Justin was very annoying in this episode because why is Carlos asking Justin about dating stuff? He should have been asking any of the older cast members, not Justin. What do you guys particularly think about Turbo? I know Turbo is the usually mostly hated season of PR. Do you particularly like this episode because at least it had some funny moments, and we do get a little bit more backstory and more personality to Divatox, rather than sticking to the status quo of, you know, the main Rangers and Justin being the main focus? Or do you particularly actually like this episode? Again, leave your comments below, leave your suggestions below as well for what future episodes you would like me to review. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys right back here next week. Now this episode is footage...